Hi, welcome along to AFTV. We've got a very special interview today. We have an Arsenal legend in the building. I know we don't use them words lightly around here, right? And that is Paul Davis. Paul Davis is, you didn't think I met you, Julian, did you?
No, well, hopefully in about 20 years maybe, but not
we've
quite
got
yet.
legendary midfielder in the building, Paul Davis, got a brand new book out which we're going to be discussing. And Paul, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. A player that I grew up watching, and now I'm sitting there and you look younger than me, and I grew up watching you. But no, great to have you here.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks for that introduction. It's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to talking about my career and talking about the book, and talking about how the team are doing. So I'm really looking forward. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, brilliant. Julian, of course, I got you on this as well because I know you, growing up in the same sort of era as me, would have been, you know, a person who look at Paul and admire him when he was on the pitch. He was a fantastic midfielder for this club.
No, he was absolutely fantastic. I mean, from what I remember, I'm trying to think of the stats, 447 appearances for Arsenal between 1980 and 1995.
Yeah.
2 league titles.
Yep.
The FA Cup and League Cup in one season. First team to win that domestic double.
Yes.
And then the famous night in Copenhagen when we beat Parma. And that was a fantastic night. But all those honours, but one of the biggest honours is that you were my father's favourite player.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was watching football since, I think, he watched his first Arsenal game was in the 40s. So of all those players, you are the one.
Okay, those stats are really. It's only since I stopped playing that you really look at what you've done.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I did the book was I've had time to reflect.
Yeah.
And look at all of that and some of the stuff that went on in my career, in my life, and I think I wanted to get it down in a book so that people could actually read it. Those experiences are great, winning those trophies, playing that amount of times for Arsenal. I mean, you just don't realise. I didn't realise until after finishing it, and even the few years after finishing, still didn't take it all in. It's like years and years later, and fans coming up to me and saying stuff that I'd forgotten about, and just reflecting and thinking, wow, I've had a journey. There's been some stuff that's gone on that people don't know about, particularly, and I'll talk about it in the book. There's, people ask me about Glenn Cockle, people ask me about my debut. We'll talk about all that. And what happened with George Graham, and how did you win all those trophies? What was happening inside? And, I've been as honest as I can. Well, I've been as honest with Tom Watt helping me to write it. And I think with Tom and I being so close, because I've known Tom for about 35 years, and we were able to dig into stuff. And I think he probably got more out of me in the book in terms of speaking and being honest than anybody else was, because we've got that relationship. So I'm really pleased that, we were able to really get to the bone of a lot of it. And I think the fans will find it really, really interesting, the bits that I've spoken about. I've spoken about, my personal life, how football affects that. I've spoken about winning, what we did to win, and the joys that we've had with the fans. And I speak about racism, which has obviously played a big part in me as being a black man. And I talked about all those sort of things growing up in the book. And I'm really pleased with how it's turned out.
You know me as someone growing up, right, supporting Arsenal. You was a real role model to me. Like watching you play, obviously then like Ian Wright, Rocastle, all these guys that you played with, those players of those era was really what really ignited me as an Arsenal fan. And I don't know if you was aware of that, because one of the things that I wasn't aware of, obviously I know you've been at Arsenal for a long time. I didn't realise you was there that long. Yeah. You're like literally from the age of 12, you was an Arsenal player.
Yeah,
for the academy.
Exactly. I came into the club at 13, So that was back in the 70s. And one of the biggest things for me writing the book was the fact that I was the only black player back then in the club, apart from Brendan Batson.
Yeah, he didn't really establish himself, did he?
Yeah, but it's only like I said earlier on, it's only years later that I realised that was the situation.
What was it like?
It was tough being a footballer at that time. And there were certain aspects of being at Arsenal at that time that were tough, but it wasn't as tough as being somewhere else like Newcastle or West Ham or Chelsea. Everton, Liverpool. It's like all over the country it was tough. I mean, I talk about it in the book, going to grounds and being the only black player on the pitch and just getting total abuse from obviously the away support. So I took, those experiences I feel have to come out and have to be spoken about. And this is the right time to do that. And people will get a sense of how difficult it was. But coming back to being the first black player, and I'm really proud of it now, the first black player to establish himself at Arsenal. I look back, I think, wow. And what has maybe really more sort of has been more clear to me over the years is that the number of black fans that were watching at the time.
Yeah.
Like you just said there.
Yeah,
I didn't realise. I didn't have a clue.
Listen,
I'm just playing my game. I'm just doing my best to try and get in the side, keep a contract, not realising that you're having such an effect on
you were carrying us as well. We're like, we're backing you. You got to make it for us too.
And I didn't, but at the time I didn't know that. It's only now, people talk about that. So, and it's an honour really. That's a privilege that you've had that effect on people's lives, and you really have, because they're telling you. Like,
do you also consider then, right? Maybe you haven't considered this one. That's one for the fans. But then, what about all the other black players that have gone after you, right? Right up until now, that you'll see a guy like Saka playing. You've paved the ways for these guys. He's following the same path that you followed. That he's come through the academy, and now he's playing for Arsenal, and he's doing brilliantly.
Yeah, it's a massive.
That was set by you. All the guys that came afterwards, and a lot of those players said that you mentored them, Ian Wrights and people like that.
Yeah.
So
that's a big.
Kevin Campbell's.
Kevin Campbell's mentioned it recently.
Yeah, those guys. All you
had to do was high five him.
Yeah, no, that side of it is I'm really proud of, and it's only, like I say, recent years that's kind of really, come to my sort of attention really. Like I say, at the time, you're just doing your job. You're trying to keep yourself in the team, trying to get a contract. But yeah, that's such an honour to be able to, for players, current players and those players, Ian Wright, Michael Thomas, Rocky Rocastle, all the others, Chrissy White, Raphael Mead, and there's so many since have come, and and I've been a part of that. It's really unbelievably kind of humbling, and also with the fans, people off the street have come up and say, like, I only support Arsenal because you were playing and you're the only one that I could identify with back then. And it's kind of wow. And I think, like, I look at our fan base now, and it is, it compares well with any of the Premier League clubs in terms of diversity in our support. Another club I don't think's got that diverse support.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
And it comes
brilliant
from that. All the time. So part of my book talks about that. Part of it obviously talks about my career. But one of the other reasons that I wanted to do it was because I've seen the changes that have happened in the game and the changes that haven't happened. And one of the big things I'm involved in now is management, coaches in the game. So, I've been involved in Mikel Arteta's development, and I talk about that in the book.
He wrote the forward in the book.
He kind of forwarded, which I'm grateful for, and it's really some nice words there. But
I'll give you a quote. I don't want to reveal too much from the book, but he says, "I first met Paul when he was a coach educator with the Professional Footballers Association, and I was studying for my UEFA B in 2015. He was personally and successfully guided me through that coaching qualification."
Yeah.
So you have a lot to do with what Mikel Arteta is doing right now on the pitch for Arsenal.
Yeah, it was. It's surreal when you're kind of working with players. Like obviously, he was at that time he was a player, and so he was just finishing career. I was, well into my coach educational sort of career. So the idea is that we help and develop players to become coaches. That's my role. So to be able to support somebody like Mikel in his early days of coaching, and listen, these guys know the game. Our role is really to support them and help them in certain areas, but they know the game, and we just.
Yeah, but not every ex-player turns out to be a good coach.
No.
So you must have.
Yeah,
we must play a big part in that.
Yeah, we have a part to play, but somebody like Mikel, he's got. At the time, he was talking about Pep. He's talking about people that he knows within the game. So we do have a part to play. I'm not denying that, but and I've got a bias towards him, obviously, because I've had a part to play in his coaching career, and I think he'll do like last year when he was getting a lot of, a tough time when we were going through. It was probably around this time, wasn't it? Last season.
No, already
we lost 3
by then.
We lost 3, didn't we, or something?
Yeah, we lost our first 3
We lost
games.
3 and then we won 2.
Yeah,
and we beat Spurs.
but he was getting a hard time, and I was saying to people, look, just I know I've seen him work. Just a bit of time, bit of support, and hopefully we're starting to see that now.
Yeah.
But
Did you know straight away? Sometimes they say you can know quite early on that this guy is cut out to be a coach. Did you see that with Mikel Arteta?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can see talent. It's like watching a player. You guys watch a player. I can see something there. As coaching, I feel is similar. I can, working with somebody, I can feel if they've got a natural. And Mikel, his pedigree, Barcelona, and we've worked, especially working with Pep. I mean, and he was with Pep at Man City for 3 years, I think, 4 years, and
at least 2.
At least 2, yeah. And he's, he's very good, friendly with him. If you're not picking up from somebody like Pep, then you shouldn't be trying to cast yourself as a coach. Yeah. But he's obviously picking up. He's obviously got his own ideas. He's had his own career, and it's starting to come together now. And I think the players and the club are supporting him. So yeah, I'm really excited for this season and what he's doing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Let's go back onto your career again now. Right, in the early times, the early days, and like Julian said, and I hand it over to Julian, lots of successes.
Yeah, to start with,
once George Graham came.
That's right. Yeah, once George came.
That was the big.
I was here before.
Me.
Yeah, before George came. We didn't have a great.
You with
deal.
Terry Neal.
Terry Neal.
Debut.
Terry Neal gave my debut. God rest his soul, he passed recently, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he was good for me. Yeah, someone that gives you a debut, you got to always respect him.
How old are you? 17.
17.
Away to Tottenham.
Away to Tottenham first game. Yeah.
2-1.
Yeah.
Vassal and Sunderland.
Yeah, you've read the book. You remember it. You was too young. You wouldn't have been around then.
It was about the time I started watching, but no, I've read the book.
Yeah. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about all that. Obviously, my debut, how it came about. My feelings in the dressing room before. I try to give the fans a flavour of what that's like.
Yeah, that's something I'd love to know. Is what does it feel like? I've never come that close to playing. Yeah. I mean, I told you the top honour I got in the game was the Barry Goldstein Minor Cup runners-up medal, sub unused. You've done slightly better than me. Yeah. I've always wondered what is that like. You run out at Tottenham playing for Arsenal at 17.
Yeah. I mean, even in those days, that's even now 17.
17 is
giving someone a debut at 17 against Tottenham away, eyebrows would be raised. People would be like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, no,
it's at massive. 17 in the midfield.
Yeah, it's a massive thing. Hoddle, yeah. And I really go into detail in the book because I want people to get a feel of what that's like. And I talk about that in the book. And a thing for me was, I take it to modern day because I work with 17-year-olds now with the national team because my work involves national coaches and national players, junior. And I was doing some work last year with one of the national teams. And these are 17-year-olds. And so I'm looking at them thinking, wow, I was actually in the first team. These guys are not really close to their first teams yet. And it struck me then that, you know, I was actually playing in the first team where these guys are like 3 or 4 years off. Not to say they're bad players, it's just that the game is evolved and changed differently. But yeah, to make your debut back then at 17 was a massive thing. And it happens now, but it's not as common.
It normally happens in the League Cup, doesn't it? So they bring them in, these players.
Yeah. But it was a great thing for me, and I don't want to give too much away for the people because I want them to actually go in and read it. But it was a great experience for me.
So should we fast forward to the times where I really remember? I started watching Arsenal under Terry Neill, then Don Howe, and I loved going to Arsenal because it was so new to me. But then suddenly George Graham arrives and things were entirely different. It was a different experience. You're not only going to Arsenal and enjoying the moment, you're actually starting to win things.
Yeah, once George came, it was a different story. Before then, we were like, you know, Terry Neill was great for me, but he didn't have control of the group and it wasn't organised as well. And then George came in and just said, look, this is how it's going to be, guys. You're going to have to do this and this, otherwise you're out. It's kind of like, it was pretty clear to everybody.
Was he very direct?
Absolutely direct, yeah. Everybody knew where they stood. And everybody knew what was expected of them. So, you know, you can't really argue with that. You know, you just got to be able to produce what is being asked of you. And that's really what George was about. And yeah, that first season, 87. That was the start.
87.
Yeah, that was the start of it for us.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted to kind of talk around how George did that and more of the detail. And again, I'll talk about that in the book. But yeah, that was a changing point for me in terms of my development at the club and my winning, because that was the first trophy I won. I've been there since 77, so it's like 10 years really. I hadn't been a part of any of the 3 cup finals.
Yeah, we won the cup in 79, but we'd lost it in 78 and 80.
Yeah. So I wasn't part of that squad. I came in early 80s. So, yeah, and I talk about that. I talk about those kind of moments where we had 15,000, it was raining at Highbury. And Tuesday night, and then, you know, the fans shouting for Terry Neill to be sacked. That would have been sort of mid-80s, early 80s. And so, yeah, I'll talk about those sort of times and then coming to George Graham, and then where it all started to change and we started to get
100,000 at Wembley, Ian Rush scores, so... The record was Ian Rush scores and Liverpool win, but no,
that's right. That's right. We had a different mindset when George started to get us right, organised and sticking together.
Yeah,
I'll talk about it in the book. His favourite word was camaraderie.
Yeah,
camaraderie. Yeah, it's like stick together. You know.
So we win the League Cup, which was fabulous for myself. It was the first trophy that I was actually present at. We have a slightly unfortunate moment, probably the worst moment in my life, which shows how good my life's been, but losing in 88 to Luton. But we'll skip over that one. Yeah. And then comes, for me, the greatest moment of my life, which was a bit different from you because I've heard the story from many different perspectives.
89.
But you were almost a similar perspective from me. You were sat with the crowd.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, that day, that whole time was just like historic, really. It all kind of panned out. You know, going up there to have to win by 2 clear goals. I talk about how we travelled up and the preparation and how George got us all prepared for that. And then the actual game itself, and then find ourselves in amongst the crowd, the guys that weren't playing, and why that happened. How did we find ourselves in amongst the crowd in our blazers and in our collar and tie? But it's great, you know, if you're not playing, we thought we were going to be in the director's box, but we ended up in the fans with the fans, and they were great. And it was
sat behind the goal.
Behind the goal. And I talk about stuff that happened within that, which is really interesting. But yeah, that whole thing, winning up there, 89, oh man. And it's a mixed feeling for me because I was injured. I would have played that night. And I still to this day, it's such a fantastic thing for the club. But if you're not playing, it's still like you still want to play.
Would you have played instead of Michael Thomas?
I know I would have probably played instead of Kevin Richardson. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But so along with the enjoyment of it, the disappointment of not playing is still there. And so
still there to this day.
Yeah,
it
it's
must
still
be.
because it's historic. It's like
It's the greatest game in the history of football.
Yeah, and like you wasn't part of it, but you
were.
would have been. Yeah, you weren't part of the actual team, but you would have been. I would have played if I was fit. So yeah, it's got kind of that edge.
Bittersweet.
Yeah. But yeah, that time was brilliant being in the crowd, and I talk about how we almost missed the goal, the final, and it's all in there. But yeah, great memories. Copenhagen, 94, 93, 94.
Yeah, it was 94.
I talk about in the book about my medal gone missing in that.
Ooh, house was demolished, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I talk about how somebody rang me up about 2 years after that, offering my medal, but saying I have to pay for it. And I'll talk about that.
Hold the medal to ransom.
Yeah, and I said no. I said to him on the phone, I'm not going to pay for my medal. So, if someone's out there that's got that medal, please, I would like.
Still never had it back.
Still not got it back.
Return that medal.
Yeah.
Get the medal back.
UEFA 94.
Mm.
Yeah, it happened. I'll talk about it in the book. So it's little things like that I want fans to kind of know about and understand. That, it means those kind of things mean a lot, but the memories are still there.
Yeah.
But
91.
Yeah, 91. That was probably after the Invincibles. That was Arsenal's most successful season, and you were an integral part of that. I mean, you look back on that. Apart from one glitch, I'll call it, against Chelsea, where we narrowly missed 2-1. Tony Adams was otherwise indisposed at the time, and Steve Bold got an injury. I think it was at half time, and we lost to a average Chelsea team. That would have been the first team in history to go invincible. Some of the football we played that season was phenomenal, and I think it gets overlooked because it was George Graham, and George Graham had this reputation as being dull and well organised. I remember the football being fabulous, and you played probably more appearances than one of the most appearances, wasn't it?
That season was filled up with all sorts of things going on. As you say, Tony Adams was put in prison, was out for 3 or 4 months. I can't even remember, but
December to February.
All that going on, and then still winning games.
2 points docked against Man United
as a season. This is what I love talking with fans like you guys, because you guys remember the detail of that. It's like brilliant. I have to sit down and read the clippings and then remember the detail of it. But this is the thing with fans. They're brilliant. They come up and like you guys talk. You talk in the detail about.
It was my first trip to Old Trafford.
I remember that. I do remember that. Obviously, that's a great season for us in terms of the games and winning games and almost becoming the Invincibles. Only that game against Chelsea.
One goal as well.
It was 2-1 that game.
Although we did score towards the end.
Yeah, but great times, and I do again talk about that and how we got through those difficulties with Tony being in prison, and how it affected us, and how George kind of pulled us together on the back of that. I thought George did really, really well in all those kind of difficult situations. How he turned situations around and made it a positive one for us. As it was like them against us. Them against us, definitely. In terms of media as well. I think the media was always out to kind of bring things down, and we felt that as a group of players and the management. And we just and the fact we wanted it, to be fair. George always spoke about the fans. We've got good supporters, and we need to make sure that we perform out there for them. So we had a good management.
And on the subject of the media, I think we've sort of not quite in chronological order, but I remember when I first met you, and I was introduced to you by Perry Groves, and the first question I had for Perry was, why did he hit Glenn Cockrell? He says, don't ask him anything, just don't ask. But since it's in the book, and I have to say that I was one of the few people that actually saw it happen live. I was sat with
I
my
remember
dad.
it.
But there was very few people in the stadium that actually saw it happen. It was only it got caught, and this was a time when cameras weren't even at grounds every game. It's not like
every game,
today. And it happened to just be caught in just the edge of camera view. And I remember my dad sort of saying to me, I'm pretty certain he's just hit him. He's gone down. And we kind of saw it. It all happened really quick. And I was told not to ask you, but since it's in the book, I'll ask.
No, that's fine. I mean, I
won't
tell you everything about what happened because it's all in the book. The detail of it is in the book, and it's an interesting reading. It affected my whole career. That incident. It was
your whole career.
Yeah, my whole playing
After
career.
that,
Yeah. After that.
Because people do still remember it to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the number one question. It's the number one question. Yeah, because I'm not that way. But it's the number one question people ask. The second one is what you're doing now, which we can probably explain later. But yeah, that time was so difficult. I mean, I wouldn't recommend retaliating in that way. It's not the way to retaliate. And I talk about why it happened, the effects it had on me as a player. The publicity it got, those of you can remember, or those that don't remember it, it was like front back page news for like 2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks, and it was in the news at 10, every news, and it was on the radio, people were talking, and it was all negative against me, and it did affect me after that for a long time. I wouldn't recommend retaliating in that way, but I do explain in the book why it happened. It's something that I feel that, fans wanted to know, people that do remember that time and do remember it, they've always asked me and I've always kind of stayed away from it a little bit. And I do explain in there why it happened and the effect it had on me, because it did have an effect. Yeah. I look back on it now and it probably wasn't deep depression I went into, but it was a form of that. Looking back now, at the time, I'm kind of just struggling and trying to get through. And with you mentioned Perry saying don't ask him. I think the players didn't know how to kind of have a conversation about it. I didn't know how to talk to them about what had happened to me, because it was so negative. The press, you should never play football again, that sort of stuff. You should never play for England again, or you should never be selected for England. It was really dead against me, all of it. Hopefully in there it does explain why I did it, the effect it has on me. Because it was the first time that something like that had been in football. It was like such a big, massive
quite
thing.
a lot of times since then.
It probably did happen, but it was caught.
Never caught.
Caught like that.
And like I said at the start, it's not. I'm not proud of what I did. I feel that there was reasons for it, but you can't retaliate in that way.
You also, which was a bit of a surprise, talk about in the book how you fell out with George Graham.
Yeah. So
which was a bit of a surprise. You've been talking so far. You've been saying how positive he was, how he changed everything. Yeah. You spoke about camaraderie. Yeah. But you fell out with him.
Yeah, we did have a big, massive fallout, and I think things started to change. The relationship with George and I started to change. Probably, I'd say, 88. Yeah, before Anfield. I saw one or two things, and I don't want to go into too much detail again because I want people to. It's in the book.
It's all in there.
Yeah, I want people to kind of have a read of it because it's in my own words. But we had a couple of fallouts. In the end, we both suffered because of sort of stubbornness, really. Okay, you have your fallouts, but then there comes a time where you got to say, well, okay, let's get on with what we've got to get on with. And let bygones be bygones, So, but it didn't happen, and it kind of the stubbornness went on for 18 months. Essentially, I didn't play in the team for 18 months because of this fallout.
Training with the reserves or the kids.
And it's tough. It's tough when that happens because you've seen your career just dwindle by. And all it really needs is for two people to just say, okay, we've had a fallout. Let's do what's right for the club.
So all these things are really relatable to now, isn't it? Because you see like the Aubameyang situation with Arteta, and which was, we saw in the documentary that how they fell out, and we don't know what happened there, but you think to yourself, because the players seem to still like Aubameyang, but obviously something bad had happened. Couldn't you both have got together and worked it out? But obviously, you don't know. I mean, we don't know with these things.
So it does happen. You're right. I think
it's all relatable to now, isn't it?
Yeah. Things come. Things repeat themselves, and but that was a tough time, and I wanted fans. I've written about it because I want fans to, who are interested to know my side of that, and read it and make your own sort of judgment on it. But I look back on it now and I think like those 18 months where I should have been playing, but it wasn't happening. And I think like 18 months, 40 games a season, 240s, that's 80. I'd have been over 500 games. Yeah, that's how I look at it now. Over 500 games for Arsenal. That's on another level. 447 is still good, but like when you reach that 500,
more than me and Robbie.
But you guys have travelled. You guys go and watch games like.
I'd still rather be playing. I promise you. I'd swap it all for one game, 1 minute.
But it's incredible, and then the other thing is like once your career's over now. I always looked at you and thought, obvious guy for management. Now, as again, going back to it as a black person, we don't see enough ex-black players in coaching, in management. It's great to see, say, someone like a Patrick Vieira right now doing well at Crystal Palace. But you talk about that sort of stuff in the book as well. That the next level now, when you're trying to move into coaching, management, and even issues at Arsenal with it.
Yeah. No, so you're right, and I talk about it again in detail in the book. I wanted, again, just to express how I feel about this stuff, and because I've been in the game for such a long time, I've seen, movement, not enough, in terms of that situation, and I've been involved in it. I've spoken to players, I've spoken to black players, I've spoken to white players, I've spoken to black managers, I've spoken to white managers, and I've seen how the landscape hasn't really changed in terms of senior management coaches. And I feel like, wow, I've been involved in all this. And I've been talking with people about this personally. I've been hearing all these stories and like from the time that I finished playing, even time when I was playing. So the thing about this is that as a black player, you're looking at what's going on. It's just natural, isn't it? It's just natural. I'm coming towards the end of my career. I'm looking at what's happening to Cyril Regis, what's happening to Viv Anderson, what's happening to these guys. These guys are top. Luther Blissett. These guys are at the top end of their profession, and in my book, they should be moving into management. So you're kind of watching it, and you're thinking, well, they've not moved into management yet, and why? And so you start asking questions, and then they don't get into management. And the next group of black players come along, and the same thing. What's going on? And so, like, I talk about it in the book, and then, like, 40 years later, now, or a couple of years ago when I started thinking about writing the book, I'm looking at those numbers, those figures, and it's still really, really bad. So I'm like frustrated. I get frustrated because there's no real movement in terms of numbers at the senior end. And I just want people to hear what I've got to say about that.
What's the solution to this, Paul? Because, it's a question I always ask a lot of ex-black footballers. I'm like, why are you not in management? And then a few of them will come back to me and say, listen, man, what's the point? Do all your badges, spend all that time, money, doing your badges, and there's no pathway. And one thing I know as a black person growing up in this country, right, is that if you feel there's no pathway to something, that's the worst part of it. Because you like, people be like, oh yeah, but just go and put it in. But you'd be like, no, but I'll put it in and I'm not getting an opportunity. I'm not even getting an interview. No one's even interested, right? So that's what I see in football, right? And what's the solution to this? I look at even the makeup of a lot of football clubs, and I'm not talking about on the pitch players playing, I'm talking about the boardroom. And when I look in that boardroom, I don't see many black people. Like at Arsenal, as far as I remember, when I went to a board meeting, I saw none. Not one.
No.
And it's quite interesting for me that the fact that Palace are the only club that's got a black manager in the Premier League, they do have a black person on that board. Right? So is that the solution, that we need to have more black people in the boardroom? Or what's the thing that in this day and age is still holding it back? Because as you said, all right, we could talk about when you were playing 70s, 80s, we all knew what it was like. As a fan, I've done a documentary about it, how terrible it was. But this is 2022 now.
Yeah.
We shouldn't even be discussing this now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does get frustrating. What I think the first has to be an acknowledgement that there's something not right here. And unless people can, honestly look at the situation and say, right, yeah, we've got there's something that we've got to improve here. Because I still feel that people are not at that point. It's like you're still here, or people are sometimes actually quite frightened to say how they actually feel. That's what I feel sometimes, is that because they feel they might be jumped upon, but they feel that there is a fair opportunity, but the numbers don't say that.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, and the stats on this is just scary. I've followed it. I followed it from when I was finishing playing up to now, and the numbers are just frighteningly bad on this. So, I think people have to just look at that, really sincerely look at the numbers and say there is something wrong. They can't deny that. And then once there's an acceptance that there's a problem, the will to then want to change it. That's another thing, isn't it? And I think, that's where it's at. And I don't know how you can get people to do that just by just keeping on saying how you feel. But it's hard. It puts a lot of pressure on a black person to continually.
You don't want to keep moaning about it.
No, that's it. You become a moaner.
Everyone's
Paul
like,
Davis keeps saying,
here they go again,
Yeah,
talking about. But listen, but then we got to talk about it because it is an obvious, serious problem.
Yeah, and so part of the reason I wanted to get that in the book is kind of just get that across. This is how I feel about it. These are my experiences. And, have a look at it yourself honestly and just be courageous enough to say, yeah, okay. And it takes. What I find it takes a bit of courage to go against the grain. It does take a lot of courage to go against it.
Because you were even at one time going to sort of go against Arsenal on this, weren't you? Because you was unhappy.
Yeah, I talk about that in the book. Yeah, that was a tough time again for me. And there were people telling me that, you've got a case against Arsenal, you should go for them 100%. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is my club, man. How can I go against my club? I mean, I supported Arsenal before. I supported Arsenal before I even joined Arsenal. I was supporting, like, all these years later, people were saying, like, you got this, you've got to take them to court on this. So I was in a real tough situation, and like again,
in the book. It's all in here, man. It's all in this book, right? That's why you got to go and get this book, which is at Amazon, available on Amazon, by the way. But it's incredible.
Yeah, and I think I feel it's really important for somebody like myself just to get things down on in paper. And one of the reasons with my sons, I've got two sons. Yeah, and they're in their 20s now, and they're coming up against stuff, same sort of stuff I come up against. I sort of think, okay, I want that sort of generation to help them to say, well, this is how I've tried to deal with it. Yeah. It's hard, but you can get through. You get through, and hopefully, it's not just for my sons, but for other communities to read it and learn a bit.
Yeah, because there's not enough Asian people involved in that game either. That's the other one. Before we go, I've got to ask you about the team at the moment. Started the season off really well. Like you said, Mikel Arteta was having started off a bit rough last season, but then just missed out on the top four, missing out on 1 point. Lots of sort of his players that he's brought in now, like Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, it's looking like a new team. It's looking rejuvenated. It's very exciting at the moment. I know you was at the ground the other day and you was like really excited to see the team. How are you feeling about the current Arsenal team and what do you think they can do?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited like the fans. I speak to the fans and like you guys. It's like it really feels good. And the stadium, I was at the game last night, which was against Aston Villa. First game for me this season. And the atmosphere is really different, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, the fans are really excited.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the game last night. I thought, it's really, the game was, because we were quite close to close down to the action. It's so fast. The game has changed so much. The quality is there as well. So I'm excited. The players that Mikel's brought in, they're winners. That's the thing. It's the mentality of players. You know, those guys, Jesus and Zinchenko.
Yeah, Zinchenko.
Zinchenko. He wasn't playing last night, but is he still injured? I'm not sure.
Still got a little injury. Yeah.
But we've got some players there that are good, technically, understand the game, but the mentality of it.
Yeah, and it's great to see like some of these guys that are following your pathway, Saka, Smith Rowe, two guys from out of the academy that have come through the system. And it's one thing that I'm liking about Arsenal at the moment, that those guys are part of the team as well. I mean, that must be great to see as well for you. Yeah,
I think Arsenal have always had that tradition of having one or two. I mean, even back when I started out.
Thomas, David Rocastle.
Yeah, but even before that, Charlie George and those guys that came through there, Stapleton and Dave O'Leary. That's when I started at Arsenal. Pat Rice. So we've had a long history of that. And the fans, I think it's good for the fans, isn't it? When you've got that line of, and those guys have done fantastically well. Those guys that you mentioned, Smith Rowe and Saka. So at least if you've got at least two in the team, I think that's good. Yeah. For supporters, and they're doing well. Those guys. I know, Saka might be feeling a little bit of tiredness at the moment. I'm not sure. He's had 3 seasons, I think, of full on.
Yeah, he's hardly had a summer off, is it?
And it might be just taking a little bit of a toll. But outstanding players, attitude. Arsenal players through Smith Rowe's kind of dipped off, but I think he'll come again. But having young players that have come through the system is part of Arsenal, really, because it's like what we've done. And it's great. I think fans love that. I came through the system and, like you said, Rocastle and all those guys. And I think there's a special thing when young players come through. But no, I'm really excited for the season. It's looking good. We're gonna go. No, I don't think we'll win the Premier League.
Top 4 maybe.
Top 4.
Definitely a chance and a trophy. Maybe.
A trophy, I would like. This would be my kind of. Obviously, I want us to win it, but realistically, I don't see us winning the Premier League because the others.
We won it in 88, 89.
Yeah, special.
No one really gave us a chance then.
He's about the only one saying we can win it right now. You know what I mean?
I believe in 88, 89, when George says we can win it.
Yeah.
I mean, I went there. I left A-level 45 minutes early because George says we were going to win it, and I believed him. Yeah. And I think if we could win it then, we've got.
Even Mikel's not saying we're going to win it. Right?
But they're media trained now, aren't they? We're not allowed to say the truth.
Okay. Well, I like the style anyway. I like your optimism, but I think I'm really happy with what we're getting.
Still early though. Still early. I agree with you, Paul. And, still early, but we're playing well.
Yeah, playing well. And the European, if we can win, it'd be great if we win the Europa Cup.
Yeah.
So that'd be.
And if we did, you would have played a little part, right? Because you was with Arteta right from day one. I keep reminding people of that, but it's all in the book. Paul, where can they get this excellent book?
So all good leading shops, bookshops, and Amazon, everywhere, anywhere that you can normally purchase your books, it will be there. I have to say, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. The publishers have been great. Reach Sports and Tom Watt for helping me kind of put it all together, and you guys for supporting. So
no, thanks very much. Listen, let's make this book a bestseller, because some of the stuff that even what Paul's been talking about in this book is so interesting. Right?
It's very thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking book. You've got to get out and get this book right now. In all your bookshops, also available on Amazon as well. We'll put a link in the description as well so that you can click onto that and get the book as well at Amazon. But listen, Paul.
It'll be in the club shop, bookshop as well. The club
bookshop as well?
Yeah.
Club shop as well?
Club shop, yeah.
Okay, in the club shop as well. So listen, every Gooner has got to get this book. This is part of our history, right? So get this book. And this guy is part of our history, Paul Davis. This has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you very much for coming in. You look like you could still be playing. Don't you? Look at him. He's still in great shape and everything, isn't he?
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be on with you guys, and I'll keep watching you guys on the show. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Paul Davis, ladies and gentlemen. Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.